on the run, riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back with you, Crappie Connection. We're at the Spring Grizzly Show 2025. Kicking off the new year. So appreciate everybody joining in. We've got a great subject line and two guests that I think of breaking down new lakes, and these guys come to mind. So introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and a little about yourself.
Hey, I'm Stephen Sullivan. I'm from Batesville, Mississippi, and man, I love to crappie fish. I've been crappie fishing all my life, and going and breaking down new bodies of water is probably one of the things that I enjoy the most about what I do. I love the challenge. I love going to new places. It probably gives me more enjoyment than anything I do.
I believe it.
I'm Jamie Robertson. I'm also from Batesville, Mississippi, and I think this is Stephen and I's 8th year tournament fishing together. And I'm like him. I like the challenges of breaking down new lakes, and we've gotten pretty good to where we can do it in just a matter of a couple, 3 days, and because you're kind of limited, and just things that I enjoy doing. Hope we can keep on doing it.
Like I said, both you guys, and I look at every tournament result, and you guys are up there in the hunt.
Yeah.
You're up there, and that takes a lot. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, but also a lot of thinking.
A lot of luck.
Well, luck plays a role in it. I agree, but also you got to get past the luck factor.
That's right.
To do consistently good, and you guys do it. And like I said, I see your names up there. I pay attention to all those things as well. But I really want to break down how you guys are breaking down these new lakes, because there's a lot into it. And let me see how I would like to pick out a lake you've never been to. And I'm going to make it a little bit interesting. And you might not know a lot about this lake. And then Toledo Bend. How about that? Have you been there?
I have not.
Okay. Toledo Bend is a huge reservoir. And I want you to, I'm going to kind of give you I've been there. I fished it. And I'm going to give you some scenarios, what I've seen of it. Yeah. But I want you to kind of explain how you guys would go about breaking it down, getting ready for a tournament, getting ready to go catch fish. And the background, what I know, and I might be completely off base, but it's a huge reservoir. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is big.
Yeah.
It's almost like an ocean.
Yeah.
I think it's like 186,000 acres. Very big. Has a lot of standing timber in it. Had a lot of the boat lanes in it. You've got to run them because there's so much standing timber. Kind of like Barnett on the upper end.
Yeah.
You don't want to get out of a boat lane. You want to stay in the boat lanes, a lot of standing timber, a lot of deep timber. But also, I would think at certain times of year has a lot of current. So I know those fish, you got a lot of big black crappie and a lot of big white crappie. So you've got a mixture of two, but kind of go through some of the processes. Never been there. What are in, let's say springtime, and that's where we're at here. We're in the springtime show. So kind of go through your mindset up going to a new lake you've never been to. What is the starting point for you guys?
Well, I'll start and I'll let you follow up. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to do is weeks or months ahead of time, I'm going to start studying lake maps. And the first thing I'm going to start looking for is the main channels.
Yep.
I'm going to start then looking at large secondary channels. I'm going to look at the layout of the lake. In other words, is it more of a big round lake like Ross Barnett? Or is it maybe more of a long broken up lake like, let's say, like a Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
And water color, water clarity, that's going to play a big part of it too. I'm going to study what I know about the water clarity. And is it different in different parts of the lake traditionally? And so those are the first things that I'm going to look at. And then, of course, from there, let's say it's a big round body of water like Ross Barnett. You know, I'm going to start working the channels, and then I'm going to basically start working ledges, obviously deep standing timber, anything that's near the main channels or secondary channels next. That's going to be the places that I'm going to start looking. And I had something I had on my mind. I kind of dropped what I was going to say. But anyway, basically, I'm going to start breaking it down near the channels and the secondary channels. If there's current, like you mentioned, if there's a lot of current, then I'm going to start looking for places where there should be natural current breaks. I just think, obviously, crappie, I'm going to catch more fish if I can get away from that big current and they can find places they can rest out of the current. But that's kind of the first things that I'm going to start looking for.
We're going to keep going with it. So
a lot of things, too, is when we're on a lake like that, just like we were at Lake Talquin last week, there's all kind of structure out there, but those fish were not relating to structure, and that's what we'll look to is see if they're relating to structure or if they're out there just doing their thing, you know, and that kind of tells us a lot about what we need to focus on and look forward.
Yeah, because obviously, like Jamie's saying, if you're going into it and you're noticing that they are heavily relating to structure, then, you know, probably I'm fixing to start side scanning. Side scanning to me is probably the greatest tool you've got on a new body of water besides a map.
Why is that?
Because I can cover a lot of water. I typically side scan at about 5 to 6 miles an hour, usually 5.5 miles an hour. I can't get up on my front trolling motor with my live scope and go that fast.
Right.
And so I can cover more water. I'm covering out I usually side scan out to 80 feet, sometimes 100 feet on each side of the boat. So I'm covering a huge swath of water where I can see structure, I can see fish, I can see shad, see if there's bait in the water. Everything that we're looking for to find where the fish are, I can cover more water quickly. And so definitely structure. That's about, to me, that's the fastest way.
What side scan are you running?
I run Humminbird.
Humminbird?
Yeah, I've got a Helix 12, and that's what we run. That's what we side scan with. I actually like Garmin side scan a lot. I've always been a big Humminbird guy with lake maps and side scanning, but I got a new Garmin unit that's a 12-inch unit, and I actually like Garmin side scan a lot too, but Humminbird is kind of my go-to.
I started using my Garmin side scan this year, and I've been with Lowrance for years, and I think I was so comfortable with Lowrance, and it did a wonderful job too. I mean, all three of them will find fish.
Well, you can't beat the Humminbird lake maps.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah, that's
we rely
another good
on them
topic.
a lot.
Yeah. You know, if I go back to where I mentioned, let's say a Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma that's totally set up different than a Ross Barnett or maybe a Toledo Bend. I don't know Toledo Bend, but if it's round like Ross Barnett, then what I'm typically going to do, like if I'm tournament fishing, I'm going to break the lake down maybe in 3 segments, north, middle, and south. And I'm going to spend a day or more in one segment. I'm going to check water clarity, check fish quality. Obviously, in a tournament, I'm looking for the heaviest fish in the lake, the healthiest fish in the lake. So I'm going to break down the north section one day, the middle section one day, and then the south section one day. And then based off that, take the information that I've gathered and then try to build on what I think is the best area if I'm tournament fishing. But that's just typically the way my mindset works in going into a new lake.
You talking about the mapping? And I love mapping, and I know you guys have heard me about waypoint management and deciphering things by looking back at waypoints even. But you talking about mapping a little bit, Jamie, and kind of explain to me when you look at a map, what are some of the things that you're looking for?
Well, sometimes basically like the contours, because sometimes you have to run that contour line because that's where the fish want to be. And their contour lines and stuff is just impeccable. I mean, it's just, and just the detail on it, it just helps so much. I know for me, when we're watching those maps and seeing where we need to be and things like that. And most importantly, it gives a good track for when he wants to go in the dark at 60 miles an hour.
Oh, he wouldn't do that, would he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that.
The other thing that I love about mapping is we pick up on keys sometimes. We notice that, hey, most of the time there's a certain depth of water that you pretty well figure out that those quality fish want to be in. And then when we figure out what that is on a new body of water, we'll immediately, let's say we notice that the fish want to be in 18 to 22 foot of water. We're
Right.
catching the most of our fish. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my shading. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick a color. My usual colors, I like the bright lime green.
Really?
And I'm going to shade
Stands out.
everything in that depth range lime green. And now when I'm going to a part of the lake where I'm going to hit a new part of the lake and a new body of water in the lake, it's already shaded lime green in that depth area. That's one of the first places I find me some contours that are in that green shading that may be close to the channel. That's the first place I'm going to go look. I'm going to use that shading in every lake I go to.
And you know what just screams in my head when both of you guys are talking on what we are? To me, about breaking down any new lake is about elimination.
Yeah. And that's what we do a lot of, is eliminating water.
Yeah. And
lot.
I think you think of what's, different tools. Of course, your brain's going to be the most powerful
Yeah.
tool that there is. But it comes about that eliminating
Yeah.
dead water, or not where the big fish are, or
That's
the
right.
most fish. I mean, there's some, depends on what you're
And that's
wanting to
another
do.
thing we do. If we find fish in a spot when we're pre-fishing, we just won't sit there and beat the hole to death. We'll
Right.
sit there and pull a sample, maybe two, and because like Steven said, you catch one, that might be luck or something, but if you start catching two or three, that's a pattern. Like sometimes you have to chase them down,
Yeah.
and that puts a lot of pressure on them. And they'll do it during the pre-fishing as much as during the tournaments, and it makes them really spooky.
You got to feel like, I would think, if you're a fish, I mean, you can't hide. You've got a target on you. And I mean, the pressure is directly focused on you. It's not like maybe just baits coming by and a boat being over there, and maybe when we were spider rigging, you may have the outside pole close. I mean, it's focused on the fish. The pressures are going directly to the fish. You can see them moving away from it. I mean, you got to think it's forward-facing sonar is probably the biggest thing.
And there's a lot of times, before live scope, we never thought in a million years we'd see crappie buried down in the bottom like you thought catfish was in that. But now it's totally opposite. They're going down there to get out, because we spend most of our time live scoping in that bottom looking for that little hump.
Yep.
And we've caught some big fish
Describe that little hump.
down that little hump that just, you see it moving just a little bit, and you stick a jig down there, and a lot of times you'll feel that thump. And they're trying to get away from us live scopers.
What would and I want you to think back of, not all, because you fished so many tournaments over the last years, but I want you to think of a tournament that you fished, and like I said, it could be anywhere, but walk me through when you felt like, hey, during this tournament, I've got them kind of figured out, and that's the magical
Be
excitement. What was that?
I said that would be Table Rock with Tom. Figured
Go
out.
through that pre-fishing, how you pre-fished that lake,
Well,
and tell us about it.
We broke that lake down like Steven said, and there was a leg of that lake that had white crappie, and we're white crappie fishermen,
Yeah.
and we went and fished that day. We caught some decent fish, but we didn't think they were tournament fish. We didn't think they were there, so we went to another leg that was black crappie predominantly, and clear water, because where the other leg was stained water, and we felt it because we couldn't fish that lake for a year, couldn't talk to other anglers, so
Yeah.
doing the research and stuff, what was it, 11 and a half, 12 pounds each day for the tournament was what was the prior years.
If you could catch a 10.6 pound average, you could match what Hayden caught for 3
Yeah.
days, which was the largest weight I could find that had been caught in a 3-day tournament.
And pre-fishing, when we broke everything down, we were catching 11 and a half, 12 pounds pre-fishing on what we come up with. So we took that Thursday before the tournament started and spent the day with our wives. Had no idea that Cagle and them would come in with 16 pounds on the last day.
Yeah,
saving something.
But just
we made a mistake there for sure, obviously, but and the biggest mistake, looking back, backseat driving's easy, but we were catching a mixed bag of black and white crappie where we were catching these fish, and it's kind of a transition zone from further back in a river arm where the water was dirty and kind of transitioning into a deeper part where it was clear with standing timber. We were kind of fishing that 2 or 3 mile transition area. And the largest fish we caught pre-fishing, the 260s, the fish like that, were blacks. Yeah. And they were the healthiest, biggest fish. Yeah. And in hindsight, what I should have done was move closer to the dam and clearer water and started side scanning and found a whole lot of more structure with black fish on it. Because that, it should have been common sense. They're the highest quality. And I'm not strictly in a blackfish area. Maybe I better get where it's strictly a blackfish area to get the most quality. And that's what they did. They found the best quality fish.
We got 6th place, and with everything we had to go on, we
felt good.
We felt really good. Thought we had, because that was pretty consistent. We saw those fish, and plenty of them.
It's amazing to me. From myself, even fishing tournaments through the years, you think of those tournaments that you're like, man, if I had just done that, we could probably had a lot better result.
That's right.
And I think that comes with the challenging part is you saying, hey, I figured it out, but I figured it out too late. It is how to get, and some of these guys are masters at it. I wish I was, but I'm definitely not. But picking up that detail before it's too late.
That's right.
And it goes back to even the guys traveling to new lakes. Mm-hmm. You go back and you say, man, we figured them out. We was here for 5 days and we figured them out, 4.5 days into it.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the total first thing that we kind of mentioned is about the elimination.
That's right.
And people always ask me when we're fishing together is, how do you do it? And I said, I'm always thinking about what do I need to eliminate. I'm not thinking about really what we're doing is great. I'm thinking what's not working before I can put it out of my mind and just focus it on what's good.
Agreed. We should have really, in retrospect, I should have after the first day and we saw where we were. I don't like pre-fishing on tournament days.
No. Right.
But we should have, let's say, wheeled back first thing to where we were fishing. We were catching that kind of weight pretty quickly, and then we should have gone pre-fishing our way back and trying to hopefully get lucky and land on a spot.
Get those weights pretty early.
But it just, like I said, backseat driving's easy, and I'm like you're talking about. Sometimes I just kick myself for not really thinking outside the box and being open-minded enough. Sometimes I think one of my big, out of many weaknesses is I sometimes get a little bit narrow-minded, and it costs me.
But the Truman Lake tournament we won last year, we had the river. We found some fish, good fish, on that Monday. We didn't want to go back to it. We didn't want nobody seeing us in there. And the river came up 6 foot overnight. So tournament morning, we went back in there. We just gambled, went back in there, fish were gone. So that morning, we had wound up having to pre-fish. We just hit the trolling motor and went. Wound up catching the biggest fish that day of the tournament.
Where did the fish go? With that rise, what happened to those
fish? We don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
we couldn't get further back where we found them. We couldn't, because of the terrain, we couldn't get, it was too bushy, too tight, couldn't get back. I always want to go back when the water comes up.
We figured that's where they're
going to push back. So we worked our way out and worked our way into the next arm, which is normally the back of it. You could get to as far as the terrain, but it usually gets too shallow. But with this rise, we knew it'd come up. So we pushed way back in that next arm, and that's where we started catching some really quality fish. We worked our way back, and
when you're thinking of like some of these deep bodies of water, and I mean, I do not know the answer you're going to give me here, but do you ever look at like the normal wind directions on bodies of water?
Yes.
And take that into account?
Yes. Absolutely. Most definitely.
Absolutely.
I don't know why, it's like the hindsight thing.
That's one of the most important things.
You think of the weather and how much you can pre-plan where you need to fish at it.
Well, right. I mean, boat control is the most important thing. So in order for him, he's got to know what direction that wind's going for him to have that boat control.
Yeah.
And
I like to fish downwind. The other thing,
I was going to ask you that.
The other thing is, is, it depends on what lake you are on, obviously. Again, if we're talking about Ross Barnett, it's wide open. There's not many places you can get out of the wind. It may make play on where I'm going to fish there. I may have found really good fish at 3-prong, but it may be out of control out there. You knock a hole in your boat to fish it. But anyway, and then if I'm again like at a Lakeview Fall in Oklahoma or Del Holler or somewhere that has lots of twists and turns and really steep mountainous banks, then obviously I'm going to try to find some places for that wind that I know you can find a calm place to fish there or a calmer place to fish there, and try to find hopefully big fish in places like that based on what the wind's going to be.
I know typically even when I'm guiding, the wind forecast is probably the most thing I pay attention to more than anything else. One, of course, is going to be safety, and then number two, you've got to think about, like we said, spookier fish are nowadays. They're getting spookier and spookier.
Oh, yeah.
So I want the quietest spot as far as boat disturbance as I can get.
Absolutely.
And
we've had water come over the front of the boat before, just get sucked out the back. I mean, it's miserable when it's
and
like
it seems like these fish now, they hear a boat slap, it's over.
I see it.
They know something's not quite right, and that's kind of my mindset is they hear a boat slap, they know it's not natural.
And I tell you something else, with fish now, after live scope, you pretty much got one time to drop them.
Yeah.
And that's it. You
If
better
he
catch
ever
him that
realizes
first
something's
time.
on,
That first time,
something's
and that's
up,
it.
he's like, nope.
Yeah, one tip that I'd give folks, and at least it works for me, I think I've heard you say you typically do the same thing, but if you've got the boat control to handle the amount of wind you've got, I fish downwind.
Yep.
It's quieter and faster. I feel like I can get up on the fish quieter and faster than I can. I'm just going to make a lot more noise, a lot more boat slap going into the wind. I just feel like I have a harder time catching them. So if you got the boat control to fish downwind, that's the way I like to do it.
It's even going back in the spider rigging days, pre-live scope.
Yeah.
I always much rather have the wind on my back.
Absolutely.
And we couldn't see it, but we knew that we wouldn't get the amount of bites we used to get.
That's right.
Going with the wind. I mean, we used drift socks and chains, and if you're going to spider rig, you better have that wind on your back.
Exactly.
Exactly.
The same way in this day and age live scoping, I think.
Yeah, and even more because they're kind of catching on to something's not right around here.
That's right. And when you're, this time of the year, and it's cold water, the fish, they don't respond in most places to casting and moving baits real well, and so it's not a situation where you're going to be able to stay back from them most of the time. At least in our North Mississippi lakes, you're not going to be able to stay back 50 or 60 feet and cast to them and be able to stop the bait long enough to get them to bite most of the time.
Right.
And so you're going to have to get close enough to them that you can maybe use a long pole and hold that bait still for a few seconds to get them to bite. And it's very difficult to get up there and not spook them.
And I probably already know the answer here, but if you had a piece of advice for a guy that's thinking about fishing tournaments and wanting to, do good, what would that piece of advice be to both of them? And both you guys.
You go first, and I got one myself.
Oh, you gonna put him on the hook first?
Yeah. Well, if a guy's wanting to fish tournaments, I mean, depending on where you are, the first thing I would do is go to my local state or county or whatever crappie club and become a member and get involved with them. It's usually a community of good guys and gals, and it's not high pressure, and there's a lot of camaraderie, and it's a great place to start tournament fishing. And it's also usually some people that'll always help you and kind of help take you under the wing. Now, they might not tell you every secret.
Yeah.
They might not tell you exactly where to fish, but they'll help you take away a lot of anxiety about tournament fishing and being comfortable getting into it and knowing what to do. And then they'll help you with the fishing too. I mean, crappie fishermen, they'll a lot of times spill the beans, as I've heard you say, and they'll help you. Yeah. Sometimes more than they should. But anyway,
I was that guy.
Especially the older fishermen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be where I would suggest that you start.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a very big tip for folks that want to start crappie fishing. If the quitting time is at 2 o'clock, fish till 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because I got burnt one time with my partner. It was like 3, 4 minutes to quitting time. I'm getting everything ready because I knew we had to ride back. He's still up there fishing. I put the dip net up, put everything up.
Oh my!
And he hooks up with a one over 2 pounds, biggest one of the day, at 158. So that's a big tip. If it's 2 o'clock,
Was
because
the
I see a
truck
lot
ride
of
home
people
quiet?
leaving early. Don't stop. Fish till it's. If they give you till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, stay there until it's time to quit. Because you never know.
And I love that tip too, because I think of all those occasions. I think of, everybody's got a time when they're thinking about going home.
Yeah.
No matter if it's a tournament or just, hey wife, hey honey, I'm going fishing till 2 o'clock. I'll be home. After that. And I think a lot of people give up.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
You're like, man, these fish are not responding to anything I can do, and probably. And I think about guiding in the recent times. I had some clients of mine, and I wanted to do really good, and it was just one of those tough days. And we wound up fishing like 6 o'clock that afternoon, and they were like, and I was never satisfied because I never felt like I gave them everything, and I gave them everything I could. It's just the fish wouldn't give us anything. But I think a lot of times I see guys, and man, those guys just come by here an hour ago, and they're heading back to the ramp. I think people give up on the bite,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and they're not paying attention to that elimination. Hey, if that's not working for the first 30 minutes, it more than likely is not going to happen the next 30 minutes.
I mean, with that fish that he caught, that was almost a pound upgrade for us right there at quitting time. That makes the difference. You never know when that big bite is going to happen. It might happen a minute or two before quitting time.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think another tidbit I would give is, obviously if they're thinking about part of your question was getting into tournament fishing, but still hiring a guide. And I would, if I was hiring a guide like you, I would say, look, I know you've tournament fished a lot in the past. Obviously you're an expert crappie fisherman. I want to hire you to help me develop a mindset of how to break down water, how to think about how I should approach tournaments. Yeah. And that would be a great way to do it, because obviously most any guide is going to be an expert at helping you.
That'll teach you a lot.
Absolutely. My favorite trips, and I do several a year, and a person will call me up and say, hey, look, take me to a new area of the lake, and let's see if you could find fish.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, if we do that now, you need to know the risk.
That's right.
Because there is risk compared to where I know where fish are compared to where I don't. But those honestly are my favorite trips to take, because I know that person's just wanting knowledge. Yeah. They're not wanting just, crappie fillets. They're also wanting knowledge to catch more of them in the future. But me as a guide, that's my favorite by far. And that's why I love the Crappie Connection. I love Today's Bite, because I get to help the sport, I feel like. And you guys are definitely stewards of the sport. I appreciate what you do.
We thank you for what you do, too.
Well, it's all one big family here.
It is. I can't thank y'all enough. I mean, I think the Crappie Connection is such a great platform. I mean, what Bobby Arlen's done by bringing you and Dustin on, and having all these different people on to interact with. I mean, I'm on there every week.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm any kind of expert, boy. I get on there and I listen. I learn something every week. It's amazing the knowledge. It's such a good thing. I really appreciate them doing that.
Well, guys, I look forward to seeing you guys up the top, holding them trophies up even more in the future. I know you will, because I know
our wives will appreciate it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Almost as much as we do.
Yeah. The memories, though, that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the memories.
And this has been a great 8 years of us fishing, and I look forward to many more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. Till next time, you got Brad Chappell here,
Stephen Sullivan,
Jamie Robertson.
Holla.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my